Hello, everyone. My name is Rohan Kelkar, and I serve as the Executive Vice President for Global Power Products Division at Schneider Electric. Today's topic is a very interesting one, AI in buildings. I'm joined by an esteemed panel of speakers. Let's start with a quick introduction of our speakers for our audience. Will Cavendish, who is the Global Digital Services Lead at Arup. Will, you want to do a quick introduction?
Hi there, lovely to be here today. Yep, I have that role in Arup, Global Digital Leader. I'm responsible for trying to make sure that we bring digital and AI into all of our work to try and solve the problems of our clients.
Perfect, welcome. Next, we have Grigor Hadiev, who is the Head of Innovation for PIMCO Real Estate. Grigor?
I have the chance to oversee for PIMCO Prime Real Estate the global innovation function, but also the technology one on global scale. And I also work on the European sustainability level. And previously, I've been in charge for the large-scale development projects across West Europe.
Welcome, Grigor. And last but not least, Estelle Munot, who is the Buildings President for Schneider Electric. Estelle?
Hi, everybody. Lovely to be with you. So indeed, I head up one of the 8 global sector teams at Schneider, which focuses solely on commercial buildings, whether those are hospitals, hotels, retail premises, large office developments. And we work across the board with our clients globally on helping them advance their sustainability, energy efficiency, resilience, and people-centric agenda in buildings, and working heavily with both Will and Grigor.
Excellent. So great to be with all of you guys today. And thanks for participating. I look forward to hearing from all of you as part of our discussion. Now, to set the context, some of you may know the story of how a betting businessman went on to see Brentford football that is soccer, not American football, club from bankruptcy. The team went from obscurity to the richest soccer league in the world in 10 years. How? Using proprietary data and predictive AI engines to buy undervalued players, sell overvalued players, retain and invest in players with potential. They beat the market and some of the world's richest, most established sports clubs to become a 500 million euro business. Could the same happen in real estate, but with buildings instead of players? That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, studies show that AI will create up to $180 billion. Yes, that's B with a billion. New value for real estate industry and for commercial real estate. And we historically know these are slow adopters of technology. Could this create a perfect environment for more tech-savvy investment companies to take market share? What you may not know is 80% of the buildings that exist today will exist in 2050, a target year committed to dramatically reduce our carbon footprint, which is currently around 40% of GHG coming from those same buildings. The question therefore stands, how do we plan to approach decarbonizing buildings and how technology and AI can help? We encourage all of you in joining the audience to participate via the live Q&A with experts by sharing your comments and questions in the chat. To get us started, the first question is for you, Grigor. What new requirements are you seeing from your tenants, landlords, and how do you see AI being able to support?
Thanks, Ron, for asking me these 4 questions in one. So new tenant requirements. When we speak about new tenant requirements, to make it more precise, I'll give you an example with office buildings in Europe. So in Europe, what you observe is that in order to come to the office, you need to have in the office better user experience than at home. So one of the things that tenants are very looking for is this enhanced experience. That means that they need to be able to have a seamless, less technological journey. For example, they need to be able to join the office without any kind of opening 25 applications, to be able to create, to have let's say good amenities, on-site amenities, concierge services, fast internet connection, and nice, lovely spaces. They're also, after COVID, very requesting sustainability and well-being topics. For example, before COVID, no one was asking us what is the air quality in an office, even if we were tracking that before. But after COVID, this is one of the first questions that people are asking. If we can share with them such kind of information, not only about their air quality, but also about the temperature, and more overall about the sustainability features of the building. This is also related, of course, to the health and to the safety in the buildings. After COVID, and specifically the last months, tenants are also requesting more more recurrent updates and information on what is happening in their building. So we are all of us, we have constant access to immediate access to big number of information. So we can open, watch a movie, Google something. And this is what is now transposed also on the real estate. So the tenants want to have everything right now as information. And of course, I'm not mentioning the big classics, for example, flexible lease terms, and of course, possibility to be able to stay for a longer period in a building in order to adjust with their needs. So on the landlord side, we see that landlords want to have more market trends, more forecasts. They want to have also demonstration that the buildings are run in an optimized way. And of course, they want to have information related to the environmental performance of their investments, the so-called ESG aspect, and to be able to prove that they are also compliant with various upcoming and existing regulations. So this is a little bit from the landlord and the tenant side. Now, before we even start speaking about artificial intelligence, and I think we will come later to that as well, is fundamental piece is the availability of data. So it is kind of more than obvious that artificial intelligence can boost the user experience in a building because it is allowing, for example, to adjust the temperature in a building based on what is the forecast outside or based on the occupancy. So AI is opening a lot of possibilities there. Also, in regards of market data for the landlords, is allowing the processing and structuring of massive amounts of data related to the markets, and also to forecast what will happen on the market. So to build more scenarios with more hypotheses, and of course the optimization, we mentioned that on the heating and the cooling, but this comes also with energy savings, of course, and we're all conscious now about how much it costs to have this better user experience in an office versus at home. And ultimately, to recover, to mention again this kind of communication to tenants, we see more and more possibilities on the market now to create, for example, with chatbots, better higher responsiveness to some requests that are related to the opening hours or to how to do some things in the buildings, or even for the maintenance companies, how can they perform better some tasks. So information is becoming more available, and I think artificial intelligence is there to enhance things that are already done, or also to blur a little bit the limits between the various stakeholders on the value chain.
Excellent. Estelle, jumping over to you, we heard some very interesting new developments from Grigor on changing tenant requirements. What is changing technologically that is opening up this AI opportunity?
Yeah, there's essentially two things that are changing, and Grigor alluded to them already. There's one, the availability of data, and two, the ability to actually, or at least the capacity to use that data and train models. And it's the combination of the two that is really creating the case for the use of AI in buildings from a pure technology point of view. So I'm not talking about any of the other enablers. Here, we're really on the technology enablers. When you look at the data availability, actually 90% of the data that we use today was created in the last 2 years. So the last 2 years have seen a proliferation of the ability to access data. When it comes to actually being able to train and models and use data, what we're seeing as well is a massive investment for many of the data center operators into the actual infrastructure that is required to support that training need for the models. So we are really seeing a convergence of two fundamental enablers for us to be able to leverage this technology in future use cases.
Excellent. I want to bring in Will here. Curious to hear your perspective. Do you think energy, climate, and new regulation could also accelerate AI adoption in real estate?
Yeah, I think they're going to be quite a powerful driver. For quite a while now, governments around the world have been ratcheting up the carbon standards that they're requiring of the built environment for the reason that you said. It's quite a major emitter. And so if you're serious about tackling climate change, you have to tackle the carbon emissions that are coming from the building sector. And then more recently, of course, there was all of the energy price spikes that occurred after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And those two things, came together to create a real sense of urgency around the costs and the potential risks to property and to buildings from meeting carbon needs and energy prices. And then, of course, alongside that, there's the mounting realization that the climate is getting much more variable, much less predictable, much more challenging. And so if you own 10 or 100 or 1,000 properties, all of a sudden you've got to cope with energy costs. You've got to figure out whether your buildings are going to be suitable when carbon regulations get tighter. And you've got to work out whether or not your property, your valuable property portfolio is going to be resilient as the temperature changes. And that, of course, drives people to understand data and do the analysis. And once you get large scale data, of course, that's where AI starts helping us. So we're beginning to see quite a significant demand there. And it's challenging. We've been doing a piece of work for a major European bank that I obviously can't name, looking at whether or not their property is going to remain valuable in the event of tightening carbon standards. And it looks like, unless they do some fairly dramatic things, their assets will become, what's described as stranded assets. They will start losing their value. So this is really driving people to get much more analytical, much more on top of things. And of course, that's where data and AI come to their fore. So yes, I think along with all of the things that Estelle and Grigor have already said, that is also creating quite a powerful cost and asset driver towards the use of AI in the built environment sector.
So we've heard from each one of you on how some of the trends are driving the need. But if we move into the how, do we accelerate AI? I'll bring it back to Grigor. Analysts have previously commented that the real estate industry has been behind other markets on AI tool development and technology. Do you think this is accurate? And if so, why?
It sounds somehow accurate, yes. Probably because, as Ted mentioned, we have data since 2 years, and now we have advanced players around the table. So it's not available everywhere. So we start having data since 2 years. I don't think that we still have yet the tools. And probably what will be the most challenging is to move towards this data culture. I think this is something that we need to consider. And then if you take the comparison with the automotive industry, we see that if you are natively not digital, it's difficult for you to put into place a complete digital product. What I see today is that I had the feeling, so on your question, why this is happening, is because this is how the industry was working until now. It was very siloed. And what data is making is that data is completely breaking the silos. And I'm personally expecting to see this kind of fully digital ventures that are happening. Even big players are starting to organize themselves internally to incubate this kind of fully digital, because logic is completely different when you do something completely digital versus you try to digitalize your processes. So it's completely different mindset. But I can give an example within our company. We said 2-3 years ago, okay, we have clear use cases with data. So as a representative of the landlord, so into brackets, I just want to remind to the audience that PIMCO Prime Real Estate is an investment and asset manager, and we operate one of the largest real estate mandates, which is the one of Allianz. Mm-hmm. But we're not technically the owner. So what is happening is that we see very high interest in getting data as an investment and asset manager, and we try pushing the value chain. For example, when we have a new development, we're constantly asking our developers to make sure that they have a set of devices, and that we will be able later on to extract those data from the various devices in order to start doing our work as investment and asset manager. But we see that before we were a little bit with a certain distance to what is happening operationally within the building. But we understand that we cannot, in order to have trustful and meaningful data, we need to go back. And this is actually, let's say, reorganizing now the value chain of how buildings are delivered at all. And I think this is a key point. So this need across the value chain to make sure that we all need similar data sets, but to do different kind of tasks and different activities. This is a complete change of the mindset and the way that real estate was run until now, from something that was very local because it was considered always as a brick and mortar, to something that through data becomes more global or at least regional. But we start to see this kind of globalization patterns through data within the real estate. And I think this is what is triggering also the operational change in the way that the value chain works.
That's very interesting. Will, turning back to you for this next question, for world-leading engineers, designers, and climate experts, where do you see AI first making an impact on designing buildings or real estate? And do you have any examples that you can share?
Yeah, no, definitely. So if you're not a building designer, and 99.999% of the world aren't, then you'd be pretty horrified about the way buildings is designed. It's an extraordinarily linear process. Structures get done, and then mechanical gets done, and it's then the facades, and then the fit out people get involved, and it's endless handovers and inefficiencies, and then a huge amount of time spent in all of this toing and froing. And you sort of throw your hands up and say, what, in 2024, that's how we design buildings? So, that is a bit of an issue. And then, of course, secondly, the needs of building designers and then buildings owners are getting much more complicated. So it's not just how much gross floor area have I got, but also how can we maximize solar PV? How can we make sure shade works? How can we ensure we're not disturbing people's pathways through excess wind or tunneling effects? How can we use new low carbon materials? So all of a sudden, you've got many more things to juggle. So that's ripe for bringing digital and AI right into the heart of integrating all of these things together and creating all of the optionality to make the choices between those competing different needs and those objectives. And that's what we're doing by using generative algorithms and generative methods for bringing together design into what we call total digital and sustainable design, integrating all of that together by using the power of digital and AI to do all of that in one place consistently and well, and then bringing things like carbon calculations and nature calculations right to the heart. So we've done a piece of work in Shanghai. We've got a fantastic team in Shanghai that's right at the leading edge of all of this stuff. And they've just recently designed a campus where they've done it all through digital and AI in an integrated way, in this sort of total sustainable digital design, including carbon factors, not just for the building, but for the surrounding landscape. So you can calculate the carbon absorption through the sinks of the different plantings you're doing, fully integrated into a single coherent design concept. And I think that's the future. I think we're going to move on from an extremely painful, inefficient, error-ridden traditional building process towards one which fully utilizes the power of data and AI to create the kind of choices and optionality that's so exciting and so innovative, and bringing together all of the different needs and sustainability criteria that now need to be brought into the design of our buildings.
That's a very very encouraging picture from a very bureaucratic process, if I may say so. Would like to bring back Gregor to share the next example for an asset manager and someone leading in real estate innovation. You will be wanting to see how AI can help better decision making. So we've already heard that data is the first step. What are you doing to resolve the data challenge in your real estate assets to stay ahead of your competition?
Yeah, so thanks for the nice compliment. You said that we discussed that before also, that data is a kind of fundamental step. But the reality is that we don't get this data today from the existing buildings. It sounds very strange, but a lot of people in the real estate market are speaking about metaverse, Web 3.0, but no one knows the energy consumption of their assets. So if you want to be very honest with ourselves, this is the first point. So just let's understand what is the energy performance of an office building. And to illustrate, in order to understand the energy performance of a building, we need to have the electricity consumption and all other energy consumptions, gas or whatever you have. But you need also to know, for example, what is the temperature in a building, and you need also to know what is the occupancy of the building, because the buildings that are identical from a building fabric perspective, if one is occupied 24 hours, 7 days out of 7, it will have higher energy consumption. So today, with the level of granularity with which you look at those topics, you need to have a very, very, very precise and accurate data. So it's not only having data, you need to have the data that needs to be accurate, and that we're able also to compare. So what we try to do on a larger scale is that we have launched a couple of years ago a global smart building program. We aim to collect in a standardized way key building operation data in order to compute then the various indicators and KPIs that we need to take a decision. And this is how we landed up basically with Arup, but also with Schneider, because it sounds very easy from someone that is not doing that in the everyday. Why? Why the buildings are not generating data? Why this data is not in the same format? Why I cannot extract it at all? And we have a co-designed solution that is scalable. And this is a very important point. So it's easy to have a very good example somewhere across the planet, but we are operating globally in the United States, everywhere in Europe, almost in Asia Pacific. And the question is, what should I do on the building level in order to extract data then in a format that allows me to take decisions, understand it, and to work further on that. And this requires to have first something that is somehow standardized, so that the different devices can communicate between themselves. So I'm entering into an area where I'm not an expert, but this is the reason why we work also with the guys that are here on the call, that we need to have something that is trustful. We need to make sure that the way that the building technologies are interconnected allows us to extract from a meaningful way. We need to make sure that designers are also coordinated. We just had a great example in China, but we need to have that almost everywhere in the planet. And this requires coordination, requires a lot of standardization, which doesn't mean that we are cutting things that get out of of what we want, but we need to have a kind of common language so that the various buildings and components can exchange and can share data, which is, as you said, the fundamental for us to move forward.
Would love to hear your thoughts, Estelle. For tech and sustainability leaders, you must also be investing significantly in AI. Which use cases do you see likely to be adopted first from an operating environment perspective?
Yes. So indeed, obviously as a technology firm, Schneider invests heavily in AI, and we started that journey many years ago, having a dedicated team that works hand in hand, not only with our lines of business who are responsible for developing our offers, but also with the sector teams who are part of the conversation to really help define the use cases. So we have a very client-driven approach, or I would say a problem-solving approach when it comes to the use of AI. And we started 2 years ago on that journey specifically for building assets, to really start prioritizing a list of identified problems or use cases that our clients were talking to us about pretty much every day. And really the challenge we put to the team was how do we take that and then prioritize some of the most pressing pain points? And essentially we landed on, I'm going to give you 3 very concrete examples that are things that we engage with our clients almost on a daily basis. The first one is the one that actually Gregor alluded to, which is how do we collect but also organize that data better? Because as we know, it's the basis of any use of AI to optimize operations in a building, actually not just in a building, in an asset generally. And so we started working on that first use case, which is how do we use AI to tag things better? And here I'm going to, explain it also in my own very simple language, which is I need to know whether a data point is linked to a light bulb on the 3rd floor or a chair on the 2nd floor or the kitchen equipment that might be in the canteen area. Okay. So those data points need to be labeled, if you will, in a very different manner. And that's actually quite hard to do in a building. It sounds easy when we explain it like that, but it's really hard to do. And AI can help tremendously. And we've embedded some AI modules in our solutions to help do just that, to accelerate that process of tagging the data and contextualizing it properly. The second example is indeed with regards to the optimization of HVAC. Why? Because HVAC is very often the first contributor to the energy bill and actually the carbon emissions of a building. So in some instances, it's up to 60% of the energy bill of a site. And so it was very paramount that we started really focusing on what makes the optimization of HVAC possible. And when you start looking at the data you need in order to optimize it, it generally boils down to occupancy data, weather pattern, which can be historical, but also predictive, And so if you start to sort of, but really be able to marry the two, then you can build some AI engines to really help have recommendations on the set points of your HVAC. Even until today, in most buildings that are equipped with HVAC, the set points are set manually. So you have a facility manager that will go around the site and that will actually look at setting the system in the right way. That's not dynamic at all. So what AI can help you do is to bring this dynamic management of HVAC so that you can start to be able to marry, the cost optimization that you're trying to do on your energy bill. You're also marrying the carbon emission imperative that you have to really reduce, while at the same time not compromising on the tenant comforts, because you're really basing it on tenant occupancy. And then one of the last examples that we've used is really where we look at the integration of renewables on site. So we generally call this a microgrid. And we have a solution called Microgrid Advisor that essentially is an engine that helps you optimize when and how you should use some of your energy resources on site, when you should produce, when you should use the grid, or when you should store. And obviously that depends as well on weather patterns, on grid tariffs, on occupancy levels of a site. So with AI, you can start to really embed that intelligence and make the solution much, much more dynamic. And that has a direct impact on your costs. Same thing on your tenant experience, because you have a building that's, running much more efficiently. And so we've seen some real benefits. And so these are very concrete examples of things that we're engaging with our clients.
That's very cool. You were saying, Gregor?
And if I may just jump in quickly here, because it's an excellent illustration of our pain point. So thanks, Estelle. Next time, please come to my board to mention exactly in the same way those examples. So I think that what now needs to be done is when the building is when we have this kind of understanding now from a technological perspective on the building, we need to onboard also the facility management, and ultimately they will also work with this data. And ultimately, what I need as an asset manager and investment manager is to have the summary of that, of what's happening on the building, on all those examples that we have given, in a kind of very executive way with lights probably, but just to see, okay, is it, am I hitting the green light on those specific topic? And this is something that today no one is really kind of offering as an end-to-end service. So I'm raising the point about probably future business opportunities for the people that are listening to the call.
No, it's fascinating. Who would have thought that HVAC would be the center of technology 5 years ago? But certainly in this world of decarbonization, it becomes a very important thing to optimize. Estelle, I'm going to stay with you. How is Schneider laying the groundwork for resolving these data challenges we have referenced, unlock the AI potential in real estate?
So, as I've mentioned, it's taken us a while to really get together as a team and say, okay, what are truly the solutions that we need to help our clients on this journey? So the whole point around that data, the foundational piece around data organization has been really, really critical for us. And today we have a solution that we've already deployed indeed with a handful of our clients, and, Gregor being one of them, that helps us really contextualize or provide that set of data library. Think of it as a library. In order to be able to start using your library, well, your library needs to be very well organized. So you need to have data points that you recognize, data points that are all in the same language, because, if you have, let's say, if you're the librarian and you have half of your library in Spanish and the other half in Chinese, and you don't speak any of those languages, then you're not going to be able to use that data. So it's really been, the focus has been a lot on how can we help create that baseline? Because from a technology point of view, it has, at least we've identified it with our clients as being almost like the number one pain points. Before we can start to really optimize what happens in a building, we need to go back to almost the fundamentals of how do we get that library of data that is in a usable form.
That's excellent. Again, we often tend to overlook the data structuring part. And again, with AI, this starts to become more critical. Taking a look ahead, for all of you, really, this question, How do we work to scale these ideas for the real estate market? I'll start with you, Will.
Well, I think one of the things that's going to need to happen is much stronger partnerships between some of the leading players. Because all of the work that Estelle has described and Grigor, it's fine if it's being done by one, OEM or one funder, but it doesn't stretch, it doesn't scale. And the truth is that for so many of our buildings, data isn't just dirty, it's kind of as filthy as the most polluting coal. And there's a long way to go to get to the kind of, clean up lands that's been described here. So we're going to have some pretty sustained collaboration between major players to create these common standards, common ontologies, data systems, data libraries that then can underpin much, much more impressive and radical action going forward. Then I think we're going to need some behavior change, because in many ways, this opens up a world where we see buildings not in a traditional way as things that are funded through CapEx and then operate, but where organizations are looking at optimizing the entire life cycle value and then the recycled value of the buildings as a new asset class. And that's an exciting opportunity. It's an opportunity for large players to evolve and new players to start. And that we need to be galvanizing and making happen if we're really going to reap the benefits of all of the things that we've just been talking.
Grigor, any additional thoughts?
I think sustainability, we discussed that, is really one of the absolutely key points. And it's not that I see that, I know that because we are doing that every day. So CapEx programs are expensive. So, and they're definitely reaching between 40-60% savings in terms of energy. And then depends on how do you produce energy. Probably it's also similar to the carbon footprint, but it's costly. With technology that we have deployed across 50 assets, we observe energy savings between 10 and 25%, only because we have deployed cheap but smart elements across the buildings. So for me, technology is definitely the low-hanging fruit to decarbonize the buildings. And I regret that it's not deployed on a very, very large scale immediately, because again, it doesn't cost a lot of money. It has immediate results. And it's easy and, let's say, simple to navigate and to execute. And for me, before we start speaking about, as a landlord, about very sophisticated refurbishments, we always explore how can I push to the maximum my building with the current building fabric, with the current technical installations. And we have very, very surprising results, something that 3-4 years ago was completely impossible. So we will even not considering it as an intermediate step before we go to refurbishment, because also, as Estelle said previously, the data was not available. And without data, you cannot take any decision, or you cannot move forward with the decarbonization. So I think it's definitely a kind of a key point. I wouldn't have used the word artificial intelligence, it will be probably a very big word, and probably it's phase 2, but phase 1 is simply to make it very transparent, which is not the case yet, to scale it everywhere, because the impact will be higher than doing something very, very detailed and technically advanced, sophisticated, but only on one building, if you want to have really global impact.
Finally, Estelle?
Yeah, so I would actually rebound on whatever Will and Grigor have already mentioned, because I think, what you will see, Rohan, is that we're actually extremely aligned on what needs to happen to really scale this practice. So, to Will's point, the notion of partnership is fundamental. No one can do this alone. And I think, the call and the discussion we're having today is a testament to this. You have 3 very interesting sides of that partnership element together, actually seeing and saying the same thing and wanting to advance that agenda. So you need a very progressive asset owner and developer. You need a very progressive and digitally savvy design engineering firm, somebody who's really leading the charge there. And you need technology to be part of that conversation too. So, if we manage to bring those 3 elements together, then I think we can really change the game. And so my wish would be for the future that we had a lot more of those partnership discussions, because we have proved that they do change the game. And indeed, really, to Grigor's point, I think we need to also demystify a bit what it takes to make infrastructure or building or the built environment future ready, it's not a technology problem. It's a stakeholders problem more often than not. And I think we collectively have a big job to do to demystify the problem, because if we come up with the right data points on this is how technology can bring you the right ROI, this is what you need to do from the design stage onwards in order to be able to do this and this and that when the asset is up and running, then suddenly we start to break all of those different silos and really deliver the kind of infrastructure that is needed to be really future ready.
Wow. You have all shared some very exciting examples of how AI is already starting to change the real estate industry. What do you see as the next phase in the step of this journey? What are you guys focused on in terms of your AI R&D budget and so on and so forth? Well,
yeah.
Go ahead, Sal.
So we see you'll have guessed from my comments already. We see very significant opportunity when the fundamentals are in place for AI to help. But I think our view is that we're going to be developing a range of different AI systems that are appropriate for different tasks and different opportunities. So some of the workhorse AI will be great at doing predictive maintenance and spotting that an air handling unit is about to collapse. Some of the Gen AI stuff is kind of really helpful for managing large text data and making sense of those. But then there's also a whole load of scientific AI that is going to affect quite significantly our design practice. And so we are deliberately investing in and developing a whole sort of phalanx of different AI systems appropriate to different aspects of the built environment challenge. And I think that's how we're going to see things develop. There's not going to be one AI system that rules over the world. There's going to be, bespoke and high class AI of different types that are trained and appropriate for the different kind of challenges and activities that we need to undertake. And that's certainly our view. That's certainly the way we're taking things forward.
So the way that we approach the topic at PIMCO is to say that artificial intelligence needs to act today as a multiplier of our capabilities across the teams. We can have also different statements, and everyone is approaching it differently, but currently this is the way that we try to, to embrace the topic. And I'm pretty confident that working with leaders like Schneider and Arup is definitely on regards to the site operation moving us forward. So we see that because we have tangible results on that on various assets at the same time in Germany, in France, in the Netherlands. So they're helping us to make real estate a global business. But we need also on our side as an investment asset manager to further explore how, for example, artificial intelligence is helping us to do a faster and more accurate underwriting. So how do we create a business plan? How do we imagine the hypothesis about the future? How do we make the forecasts about the market? And this is definitely, an area of thought where we are investing time and concentration, and also in the relation with the tenant. So we alluded on that on the beginning, but ultimately in an office building, the one who is paying also my salary is the tenant ultimately. So I need to make sure that he's really, really, really satisfied. And that means that we need to explore also this kind of interaction with them and to see how can we use technology more broadly, not specifically artificial intelligence, but to make sure that the offices outperforms the home experience when it's about meeting with other people, discussing topics, having big screens, fast internet connections. This virtual reality, how can we create this additional better experience so that people can come to the office? And for me, artificial intelligence is definitely helping, needs to be explored how we can move forward in those directions as well.
And maybe I'll add, so from a technology point of view, clearly AI is one of our highest priorities, obviously. We are continuing to enrich the list of, as I've mentioned, use cases. So problems we're trying to address and making sure that, we stay very, very clear on that list, because otherwise, indeed, you could start to really boil the ocean, and, the task would look very, very tough indeed, and almost, impossible to handle. So we're trying to break the broader problem into much smaller problems that we can all solve. And one of the things that is also very interesting where, technology is moving towards is that when you look at AI, will support as well. There's not going to be one big system that solves it all. And particularly when you look at a building asset, not everything's necessarily going to happen in, the cloud and will be in that, very, complex system. So some of the technology, I would say changes or where we're looking to embed AI is also sometimes at the edge level as it in the device, at the device level. So what you will see more and more in the future is really a development of AI, not only indeed in a much more sort of centralized fashion, because that's required, and particularly if you look at where AI is being developed in data centers today, it's in the hyperscalers. But going forward, you will see AI because of that, the using the models, not training, but playing with the models will happen much closer to where the assets actually are. And whether that's still on the cloud or whether that's trickling down to the device level. So these are some of the technology trends that we're working on and being very mindful as to where we want those AI engines to be.
Wow. We've come to the end of our session here, but I'm really encouraged. We started with a picture of an industry that's highly fragmented, and probably not the biggest technology adopters. And what I see here is you have AI as a stimulus, but really the focus on this industry with technology, with a financial opportunity that is in the trillions, with a need that's driven by sustainability and other actions around efficiency. But most importantly, what I see here is a great example of what we call as partnerships of the future, which is asset developers, technology companies, experts in the building design coming together as an industry to really solve some of our toughest technology and really planet issues, working together with technology as AI. And I would almost say that we call partnerships of the future, but it's that future is today. And thanks to leaders like you, we're starting to see it happen. And by the way, it's not just good for the planet; it's good financially as well. So this is quite incredible and extremely encouraging. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time today. Once again, a big thank you to all of you guys for spending the time with us. Truly a great discussion. I appreciate your insights. And thanks to our audience for joining us for this session on AI in buildings, enhancing performance and value. So with that, over back to you, and thanks a lot, guys.